Hi and welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Simon and today I'm here to tell you about some, not all because that would go on forever, but some of the books that I meant to read in 2023 and didn't get round to, and so will be very keen to get to in 2024. This happens towards the end of every single year. There will be about between 10 and 15 books. I'm like, for goodness sake, why did I not get to those? They could have been some of my favourites of the year. I'm thinking last year in particular of Briefly a Delicious Life by Nell, which have I read in 2023 when I said I would after having not read it in 2022? No, I haven't, but this is also a book that I would very much like to read early next year or at some point next year. I feel like I'm trying not to put too much pressure on my reading for next year, although I am starting to plan and plot what I would like to read, etc. And we'll talk about that at the beginning of next year, which is not very far away, just over a week, which is kind of really exciting because I think of a new year as like a whole new notebook, I guess, ready to be written all over, although invariably whenever I get a new notebook I don't want to write in it because I don't want it to get messy with my old scribblings. But it's just that kind of exciting, ooh, new start feeling that I really, really like. But at the same time, it's like, how did last year vanish so quickly? Or the last year, how have I not read all the books that I meant to? How have I not done all the things that I thought I was going to do? It's that mixture. Anyway, speaking of all the things that I've not done that I meant to do, I did do a video a while back of the 10 before the end, or 10 books I wanted to head to before the end of the year. I have a pile of 7 here because I have got 2, 3. One I very much enjoyed, one I DNF'd, and one I might DNF. You'll have to find out more about that at my December wrap-up, which will probably be next Sunday, the last day of the year. I still have these 6 to read, and they don't really, 7 even, these 7 to read. And like I said, they don't really count, but I'm just going to hold them up very quickly in case you missed that video. They were Daughter by Claudia Dey, Brother and Sister Enter the Forest by Richard Mirabella, Calla by Colin Walsh. I genuinely can't believe I haven't read this because Jordan and Dan at West Kirby Bookshop have gone on and on about how amazing this is, so I should have really read it. Then I have The Shadow Cabinet by Juno Dawson, which I think I've not read so far because I know it's got another cliffhanger, or that's what I've heard, and the first one had a massive one, which made me instantly want to read this as soon as I got it, but at the same time I'm like, I don't know how long I'm going to have to wait for the next one, even though we are getting a prequel next year. Then there is Letters Descend by Jesmyn. I am quite shocked that I've not read this one, naughty me. In fact, it's the same with all of them. Linda Grant's The Story of the Forest, and last but not least of those, Hungry Ghost by Kevin Jared Hosein. Now, I'm holding this up as I say something that goes completely against what I have in my hand, but quite a few of those I think are eligible for the Women's Prize 2024, so I'm hoping that I'll get to them in the lead up to that, because I would like to be ahead of the list. Not that I have any idea what will be on the fiction list. And I should say as well, actually, on that note, these are all fiction books that I'm going to be talking about, these next 10 books that I meant to get to this These next 10 books that I meant to get to this year. I have a whole pile of non-fiction that I meant to get to this year. Move on. These aren't in any particular order, but they are the 10 that when I was going through my shelves, I was like, oh, I really should have got to these. They are all hardbacks, and I thought that would be apt because in the UK at least, Boxing Day till sort of New Year, there is an infamous hardback book sale that goes on in a certain bookshop. Maybe this will give you some ideas of some things you might want to spend any vouchers on or just treat yourself to. First up, we have Dazzling, and I said there wasn't a major order to these, but actually this one I am genuinely annoyed with myself for not having read this year. Hello, it's Editing Simon here, and in case of you thinking, Simon, why couldn't you read Dazzling next week between Christmas and New Year? I actually have a pile of books that I want to get to that are just sort of escapist, not easy reads exactly, but you know what I mean. And so that's why I'm not going to be heading to this one next. And also because I want to have a break between any books that could be favourites of the year, which I think this probably could have been, and doing my favourite books of 2023, which I'm planning on posting the first Sunday of January, maybe. I should say it's by Chikodili, Emelumadu, and this is set in Nigeria and plays on Nigerian riffs. I love books set in Nigeria and I love myths. we have two young protagonists, one whose father has died and she makes a bargain with a spirit to bring him back to life, and we have another who, through her father's line, has inherited this mythical ability to turn into a leopard, and it's how their lives intertwine. I also think this is one of my favourite covers of this year, so yeah, quite surprised at myself for not having read that one yet. Then we have A History of Burning by Janika Oza, which got a lot of hype before it came out, and then I haven't really heard much about it. I think it starts off in India, where one of our protagonists ends up working for the East Africa Railway. He then meets his future wife and they then leave to go to Uganda, and it's what happens then years on when the trouble in Uganda happened, and we follow these characters through that. I think, again, absolutely corking cover. I can see slight light beams coming down here. Any moment it could all go a little bit book Jesus-y, which we've talked about before. Next up, we have The Middle Daughter by Chika Unigwe, and I really wanted to read this after the wonderful Ayobami Adebayo recommended it to me earlier this year. I'm going to move you forward a bit because I think something is going on slightly with the lighting. There we go. Get a little bit closer, not too close. Yeah, I really wanted to read this after Ayobami Adebayo recommended this to me. I have got a video that I filmed earlier this year with Ayobami where she recommends and talks to me about 4 other books. One of them, which is also by this author, it's their previous novel On Black Sisters Street, I want to say is what it's called. Yes, that's right. Blimey, I'm back again editing Simon. I blame it on it almost being Christmas and my brain being a little bit all over the place. I forgot to say that the video that I filmed with Ayobami Adebayo is going to go live around the time that A Spell of Good Things comes out in paperback, so it will be around then, although I think my patrons have already seen it. This is about a young woman who loses her, I hate that term, her brother, and I think, is it both her parents and one of her siblings die, and the rest of the family just do not understand her, and so she has to look for a way to sort of, I guess, survive when her family aren't willing to help, and so she ends up becoming betrothed. Oh, this pesky sunshine. I think we're just going to have to go with it, aren't we? It is doing something very odd to my camera though. Anyway, okay, that's a little bit better. I am going to have to think about if I'm going to rejig the library where I want to film and stuff. But yeah, anyway, that's beside the point. Also, can I just say, Outrageously Sunny on Christmas Eve, what the chuff is that about? Moving back, I was going to say moving on, but going back to The Middle Daughter, as I was saying, this is about our protagonist who has, I'm going to get this right actually, when Nanny is only 17, she loses her beloved sister and father, sorry, that's it, and the rest of her family don't really get her, and so she's trying to work out how to survive, and she becomes beguiled by this religious man. However, things take a dark turn. So we have that. Another book set in Nigeria, The 5 Sorrowful Mysteries of Andy Africa by Stephen Borrow. It's about a young man who becomes kind of besotted with Marilyn Monroe, and then he ends up starting a relationship with a white woman, and it looks at what happens then. And I've heard it's quite an eccentric book, but a very profound book, and one that I had got very high hopes that I would read. I'm trying not to beat myself up as I film this about the books that I haven't got to. I didn't really tune in to the Booker Prize massively this year, but one of the long listed books that I was keen to get to, and I had actually asked the Publisherable before the long list was announced, I was slightly kicking myself that I hadn't got to it, was, why do we do that with prizes? Wow, this is like the director's cut with me chipping in every so often with my thoughts. Just to apologise, there's quite a few rough cuts in this video where I've just gone off and said daft things that I decided I didn't want on the internet unusually, so that's the reason for that. All the Little Bird Hearts by Viktoria Lloyd Barlow. I've heard rave things about this from several people, both on BookTube and Bookstagram. This is about a woman and her daughter, and they're kind of out of kilter with life, and I think it's how a neighbour starts to take advantage of that, and that really intrigues me. It's meant to be quite literary, creepy, thrillery. I'm super intrigued for it and would like to get to it next year. I'm thinking as well, and let me know if you think this is a good idea, because part of me was thinking, oh, I should just start the new year with these books, especially because they're all hardbacks and I don't like to take them here, there and everywhere and batter them about, and I do start travelling here, there and everywhere sort of mid-January after I've had a nice break. But then I was thinking, would it be a good idea to read them near the time that their paperback comes out? Maybe that would be more, I don't know. I was going to say timely. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that. Then we have River Sing Me Home by Eleanor Shearer. Now, I feel like this might have already come out in paperback, having just said all of that. I'll double check. But this is about a woman in the 1800s, and the 5 children of hers that have survived have all ended up on different plantations to her. They've all been sold. And it's how she wants to find them, find their stories, and she can't rest until she does. I think this will be incredibly powerful. A bit of a romp-sounding book is my next one. It's a queer book called Neon Roses by Rachel Dawson. Now, I don't like to read the blurb, even though I did admittedly just check it on the middle daughter, but there is a very short, sharp summation at the end of the blurb on this era book that just absolutely got me. It says, from the valleys to the nightclubs of Cardiff, London and Manchester, Neon Roses is a heartwarming, funny and a little bit filthy queer coming-of-age story with a cracking 80s soundtrack. That's all they need to put on the paperback of that, on the back of the paperback. Wow, that's a bit of a tongue twister. That's all they need to put on the back of the paperback, and I would be like, instant buy. I mean, I already have it in my hand, but you know what I mean. I think that's just a fantastic teaser for what I think could be a fantastic book. I felt like I said fantastic too many times there, but not as much as back of the paperback. Anyway, then on to a short story collection, and I've just spotted the end papers are gorgeous. I should have looked at all the end papers of these books. That's for another time. This is Edge of Here by Kelechi Okafor, and these are stories from near to now, and they're meant to have quite a speculative edge to them, and that really interests me. I heard these talked about, and like I said, getting absolutely raved about, and I am hoping to read a lot more short story collections in 2024 than I did in 2023, but that's something maybe we'll talk about in the new year as well, because I'm currently reading the short story advent calendar, and this year has been probably not the least, it's not the one that I've enjoyed the least, but it's been the least successful in the fact that normally I'll read a different short story a day, and at least every few days be tempted to buy a book by the author whose short story I've just read. I think it's only happened 4 or 5 times out of 24 so far, because obviously I'll be reading the 25th one tomorrow. It has made me think, what do I want out of a short story? What are my expectations of the short story, and what are my favourite short stories? So maybe if you're interested in that, I'll do a video on that, but I'm very, very, very much excited for this one. And then penultimately, we have Lady Macbeth by Isabel Schuler. I haven't read as much historical fiction as I would have liked to this year, and now that I'm out of the denial that winter is only December, and fully appreciating that it lasts from December until March, I'm thinking maybe that's a really good time for me to get to some of the historical fiction, including Lady Macbeth, that I haven't read this year. A few of my Patreons have absolutely raved to me about this and said that I need to read it, and it's one that I've meant to. And yeah, I would like to get to it at some point. I'm assuming it's got something to do with Macbeth. Not being the biggest fan of Shakespeare, I don't know how my response will be to that, but we will see. Maybe it's not at all, I don't know. I've not read it yet, and funny enough, that isn't something that anyone has mentioned to me when they've recommended it to me. So there we go. Last but not least, this is sort of, I suppose, a cheat, because I did start it, but it was a DNF for now, not forever. And that is The Fraud by Zadie Smith, which is her latest novel. It's historical fiction. I've had a bumpy ride with Zadie and her books. The first one of hers I read was on Beauty, which won the Women's Prize. And actually, I think it was one of the first Women's Prize winning books that I ever read when I got back into reading, because I stopped reading from about 16 to 22, 23. And I'm sure I remember me and my mum going to Blackwell's when it used to be on Charing Cross Road, and on Beauty, along with David Mitchell, Cloud Atlas, and a few other books, were a set. I think it was where you got 3, get the 4th one free or something. Get 3, get the what? Or 3 for 2. But then why do I think I got 4 books? Let's not go over that now. We've gone down that line far too long. Say dismiss The Fraud. I started it, I was enjoying it. It's very short and sharp, but I just wasn't quite in the mood but also I definitely did want to read more. So that's interesting. This felt very different from the other Zadie Smith that I had read. Anyway, those are the books, that's the last of them, that I really kind of wish I'd got to this year but didn't get around to. And I should say this is a video that came with thanks to quite a few people who'd commented and said, oh, have you read this recently? Oh, have you read that in previous videos? And I am making sure that I log your recommendations, but also sometimes you'll ask me a question that will make me think, oh, well, I think it was in response to Keller actually, where I was thinking, why have I not? No, it wasn't. Somebody had commented, had I read The Shadow Cabinet yet? And I was like, no, I haven't. And why haven't I? And what's going on? And then this video came to be on Christmas Eve, because I haven't forgotten that it's Christmas Eve. I would love to hear from you of any books that you were sure you were going to get to in 2023 but haven't yet, and so you're putting onto your 2024 TBRs. And also just to say, if you've read any of the videos that if you've read any of the books that I've talked about in this video and you didn't like them, don't tell me that, because I'm excited about all of these, because they're books that I want to get to, but I just haven't got to, clearly, because that's what this whole video is about. So could you hold off those opinions until I talk about them in wrap-ups going forward? As I said, it's Christmas Eve. I am wishing you all a very, very, very Merry Christmas if you celebrate it. If you don't, I hope you have a fabulous few days. I will be taking a bit of a break from all social media over the forthcoming festive period. Thank you as always for watching. If you want to carry on the conversation, please do in the comments down below, and I will see you in another video very, very soon. But until next time, as I said, Merry Christmas, or just sending you love and thoughts over the next few days, and I will see you soon.